Right, so I just wanted to do 10 questions for first-time moms with sons who are autistic. Question number one, what are the signs to look out for? So for me, my son really was like self-play, obsessive over certain toys, no eye contact, didn't respond to his name, didn't want to be cuddled and touched, was very much solitary. Then that graduated into kind of aggressive play, not wanting to be told what to do, being a bit of a nuisance at school, even at home, banging things, tantrums. What are some of the next steps to take when you've identified that maybe your son is on the spectrum? We had a child psychologist come and do an assessment of him, just to see where he was, what age he was performing at, and where he was at development wise. It's very hard to diagnose autism when kids are still young because we found out when my son was about 18 months. So everyone is a bit afraid to diagnose or give you a tangible diagnosis, but at least an assessment of where his development stage is at is great. It's a great place to start because then you know what his strengths are and his weaknesses. And just because you have an autistic son does not mean he doesn't have any strengths. What immediately had to change when we found out our son was autistic? To be honest, a lot of things. So we really just made sure that we were aware of his whole well-being. So we, invested some money into just to kind of go back to the diet issue. Why diet was really important is if you could imagine when you're autistic, a lot of the signs are your son's not talking and making eye contact, and they're struggling to relay and relate how they're feeling. So why we focused on his diet was because imagine being made to eat something your stomach doesn't like or your body is rejecting, right? So we did do an assessment and we were told he was allergic to a few things. I'm not going to list them because it doesn't mean that all autistic kids are allergic to the same thing. So we changed his diet, we had to change his school, and we just had to be mindful of a lot of things like bright colors, loud noises. If I went to parties where it was too crowded and that was overwhelming him, I would have to leave. Does it affect siblings? So as I mentioned, my son, I have two kids. So I have a daughter who follows my son, and I actually think that it does affect siblings, but positively and negatively. The positive side being, my daughter is so understanding and so encompassing of people experiencing different things. So in a way, it's almost given my daughter her own skill set. The only negative thing I would say is probably, your parents naturally tend to put more attention on the child that they think needs more help, which would 9 out of 10 times be the autistic one. This is also another question I've been asked. Should I have more kids being as I have an autistic son? Why not? Yes, for all the reasons. I don't think you should look at this condition as anything negative. Trust me, my son has done a 180. I would put him on this video clip, but it's not for me to expose my son to the world and be like, look at him. Those who know when I do post him, you see it. But don't be afraid to think that just because you have one autistic son, you're going to have another autistic child. If you want more kids and you can afford it, definitely have more kids, because when you do have an autistic child, it is a lot of money because you do have to pay for a lot of therapists. Do autistic kids go to different schools? Well, yes and no. Some of them do go to, like, for instance, my son did have to have a period where he went to a school for autistic boys, and there are autistic schools in Zimbabwe. There are schools, there are therapists, there are teachers who are aware of these type of conditions that kids have. And autism is a bit unique because it's not like your child has a physical disability or really has a disability at all. It's just about how he expresses himself and how he would rather do certain things. But yeah, the schools are different, but there also are schools that are integrated, and sometimes your kids can even reintegrate to neurotypical schools. More about the therapist. So if you do have an autistic kid, The typical type of therapists you need are your speech therapist, your occupational therapist. So your speech therapist does help your child say words, say words, express themselves, say the words more clearly, connect words and sounds with imagery and play, which are very important. Your occupational therapist helps your child's behavior and conditioning him into certain setups. So they do different things, but all of them really important. And they're also therapists for parents as well, who also need some help kind of, dealing and coping with the autistic kids. How autism affects the parents. To be honest, it affects parents in different ways. It affects parents financially. It affects parents from an intimacy point of view, because sometimes one parent is in denial, one parent is kind of like, no, this is what's going on. It affects parents because some parents now feel bad about taking their kids around certain group settings because they don't know how their kid's going to react. Some parents would go inside themselves. Some parents can, distance themselves from their kids without even knowing it. Some parents blame themselves. But overall, I think for me, my parenting my son has been the best thing for me because it taught me a lot of natural things that weren't natural to me. Like, I was not a patient person. I wasn't someone who used all parts of my brain. My son has shown me that you need to and can find another way to teach someone how to do something. And if you apply yourself, you will see a result. That's why for me, I am very pro, getting these little boys the help that they need, because the help that they need does change and you see it yourself. Do I go around telling people about my son's condition? Yes and no. I mean, for me, I don't feel any type of way about it. I don't look at it as a weakness or anything. I mean, my son is really, really smart. And that's something I really want to say. It's about your mindset. These kids are very, very talented in a lot of really different things. My son, when it comes to gadgets, when it comes to numbers, my son taught himself how to do his alphabet, his numbers, his shapes. He can tell you what a hexagon is, a pentagon is. A crescent. He can, he's his own superstar in his own light. So I don't really mind talking about it or sharing with people my son's condition. No, not one bit. Last question. Hopefully I've kept it at 10. This is probably my favorite question. The future for autistic kids. I mean, the future is just as bright as you could imagine. I mean, some of the most intelligent people in the world are autistic. I mean, and they can do literally anything and everything you put their minds to. So, I mean, these are really, really sharp kids. And, their gifts and their capabilities are just so varied. So their future is just as bright as you as a parent want to make it. So I hope this somewhere helps a Black mom, a mom in general, anyone with an autistic child, if it is your first child, all the best.